Harry would need to do a huge mea culpa. Puts out a huge statement saying how sorry I am, I've been wrong, I was partly for my wife's fault.
He wants the freedom to be able to come back as and when.
Do you think he will get this security? Does he deserve this security?
If security is such an issue for him in this country, don't do the Invictus games here.
And if something were to happen to them, then that would be hugely damaging to Britain.
Would you watch a TV show where Sarah Ferguson has cloned the late Queen's Corgis?
There's nothing she won't do for a paycheck.
Welcome to Royal Exclusive, where this week things have taken an unexpected turn. As Sarah Ferguson is caught trying to clone the late Queen's Corgis, former Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the Sussexes are forgiven and wants them back, and most surprisingly of all, Harry and Meghan are finally producing something for Netflix. I'm Matt Wilkinson, Royal Editor of The Sun, and joining me to discuss all of this and more is host of Daily Espresso podcast, JJ Anasiobi, and Royal Correspondent Sarah Ferguson. Welcome to you both. Now,
Hello,
Sarah, you've been on the show many times before.
Yes.
This is JJ's first appearance. And I love having new guests because you don't know what's going to happen. It's a little bit unexpected, and it's a bit like our first topic. Boris Johnson, he often comes out with some crazy things over the last couple of years, JJ.
Yeah.
But this week, he has written a piece, and I just want to get your thoughts on it. He's suggesting that Harry and Meghan should be forgiven. They've had their time in the USA. He's saying it's been a success, and they should come back here and they'll be welcomed back in the UK with open arms. I'm going to put you on the spot, JJ. Do you agree with Boris on this?
On some of his points, yes. Would they be welcomed back with open arms? No, they wouldn't be. I think most people in this country dislike them because they diss dirt on the Queen. And we love the Queen. She's obviously for our generation and above, she's the best monarch we've ever had. So half of the country dislikes them very much, and I think the other half don't really care about Harry and Meghan. Have they been successful? Absolutely, they've been successful.
You think they've been successful?
If I would class success as making a few million quid from producing not very much, and they've done that in buckets. They had the Spotify deal. Okay,
They've cashed the cheque.
Yeah, they got the money. That's sweet. The mortgage is paid for, and then Netflix. Okay, they had the documentary, which was the most successful documentary in the history of Netflix. Great. But everything since then has been terrible. But they've still got the money. So that is success. For me, that's definitely successful. Now, if you're being more critical, have they won friends? Have they won plaudits? Has their popularity increased? I think their notoriety has increased, but I don't think they're as popular as they were when they first moved over there.
Well, they discussed, or when they announced they were leaving way back in 2020, they're talking about a progressive new way in the royal family and be financially independent. So in many ways, they have ended up financially independent, but will they be welcomed back? You know, what is this? Is there a general move here, or is Boris just out on his own coming up with crazy ideas?
Well, it makes for good content for Boris, doesn't it? And look, we're talking about it. But I think when you see Harry come back for the Well Child Awards, for example, when he's back on charity ventures over here, there is a lot of warmth around him. It's not always the same when he and Meghan are back here, and they're very aware of that, and Meghan doesn't want to
We
come
haven't had Meghan back
here.
Since the late Queen's funeral, I think. Yeah.
And if you remember the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, when they were coming out of St Paul's and there were boos among the crowd, yes, there were cheers too. But I think in terms of them being welcomed back, there is a lot of distrust of them. I think the British public are cynical towards them. And I think there is a sense of being wounded by the kind of brickbats that have been thrown. But I do think there would be, if it were led by the royal family, if it were led by the King and by William, if the signs came from within the palace that, you know, all is forgiven, we need you, you are a part of our family, we want you back, that would certainly help pave the way for them to come back. But actually, do they want to come back at all? Do they want to be part of the institution of which they've been so critical? Or are they enjoying the relative freedom that they have in California?
Well, there's many things there. I mean, we're hearing that Harry, you know, does want to come back. That's why he wants his security.
He wants the freedom to be able to come back as and when, doesn't he? I don't know that necessarily means he wants to move back here and be a permanent working member of the royal family again.
No. I think Harry would need to do a huge mea culpa, and that would satisfy some of the people who dislike him. But everyone who already dislikes Meghan Markle, they're not going to change their minds.
Views
about
are pretty
her.
entrenched.
Yeah, that's never going to change now. Harry comes back to the UK, puts out a huge statement saying how sorry I am, I've been wrong, I was misled, partly for my wife's fault, partly our advisors, but I want to come back and help the royal family be what they should be. That would help massively. But Sarah's completely right. The royal family have got to lead that. Charles and William have got to lead that, and I just don't see that happening.
Sorry.
I see it a little bit like the late Queen when she made it clear that it was her wish that Camilla should become Queen after her death when Charles became king, that paved the way for that moment, which had been unthinkable before. And I think, well, Charles, but particularly William, to be able to show that they were able to forgive and forget.
So we've got a former Prime Minister saying, come back, Harry and Meghan, all is forgiven.
Yeah.
You've got a public, like the half don't like Harry, the other half don't care. So do we need, if this is ever going to actually come into fruition, you're suggesting that the King and the Queen need to kind of lead from the front and tell the public that it's okay to welcome them back?
I think so. I think that would certainly make it a far easier path for them. As for William, I think we're a lot further away from that, and that's going to be really tricky. But while there is still this feud between the brothers and this kind of Wales versus Sussex camps, I think it's going to be very hard for them to receive that warm welcome. And it's going to be focused on the Invictus Games coming up in Birmingham next year. What happens then? What kind of welcome do they receive then? Is there royal family support for what is a really, really important event taking place to support veterans?
That's it.
And that's really going to focus minds.
I think another important player is Catherine. If Catherine is seen at the Invictus Games, dressed not in a fancy gown, but in some combat trousers and some Doc Martens, and she's got a polo shirt on, and she's like, yeah, here you go, we support Harry, this is lovely. The public would suddenly be like, oh, well, we can't hate Meghan Markle because Catherine actually wants to be friends with her as well. So that would help diffuse the situation massively. But again, I don't think it's ever going to happen.
It's a dream scenario. That's what we thought was going to happen when we had the Fab Four.
I
can't imagine Meghan would want to be outshone at the Invictus Games by Catherine.
No.
And she would be.
No.
Yeah.
And they will be told, they quietly might support, but, they don't want to outshine anyone else's events. They don't always turn up at each other's events. The royal family aren't always, there when it's a shot prize or whatever else. But, it is a big event taking place on British soil, and it is a cause that is really important to many members of the royal family.
Well, let's stick on Invictus Games, because my impression would be, if the King was to attend or Harry was to come back with Meghan and the children possibly. Invictus Games is next year. We've got the 12-month anniversary ahead, the unveiling this summer. They have to have their security, given that this taxpayer security. They have to win the case for him to bring... He's always said this, they have to have the 24-hour taxpayer-funded security for him to bring back Meghan and the children. Do you think he will get this security? Does he deserve this security? Is that part of this process to, come back, Harry and Meghan, all is forgiven? They need the security first.
There's a couple of things I think he falls flat on. One, was it Fulham? He was walking down the street, knocking, trying to find his mate's door.
Yes.
No armed security for him then. He's happy to do that. He's fine there, but when it's some other events where there's more people and there's going to be more security, suddenly he's not fine. Secondly, whether they're talking about Katie Price or the Beckhams, lots of British celebrities have had serious threats made to them that the police have then passed on to their security detail and said, we think this is credible, we don't think you should attend this, or we're going to give you extra security. If that's the case, then the police will let his security team know. I don't think he needs to have armed security. I really don't. But if it's so serious that the police believe he does need to have that, then they'll notify them, and then arrangements can be made on that. But just to give it to him willy-nilly, I don't think so. He's not a royal anymore. He made that choice.
There was the incident, wasn't there, when the stalker managed to get into one of the events and get close to him, which was then used to kind of ramp up the talk about the need for security.
This is not a terrorist or anything like that. It was a woman who's a bit fixated. She got into the courtroom, past security. I mean, it's a stalker, really. Come on.
Yeah, but we know that security is a massive issue for Harry, and it's a huge fear of his. We do know that there have been a lot of threats made towards them, right-wing threats, that there have been death threats made towards Meghan, and that he is absolutely convinced that he can't bring his family back here without them. And if something were to happen to them, then that would be hugely damaging to Britain as a whole and its reputation. But we're starting to see, we got noises that it was looking more likely that Harry had been in contact with the Home Secretary, that perhaps she was more amenable to restoring their security. And now it's starting to shift. The government maybe flip-flopping again, and that perhaps it's not looking so likely because it wouldn't go down well with the public.
So there's this idea, JJ, that the politicians or the Home Office or people that are involved in Ravik, not necessarily the politicians, but the people on the committee are nervous that if they do give his security, there'll be a huge public backlash. Do you think there will be?
Absolutely there will be, because people will see it as, OK, he can afford to have 100 security guards around him. They may not be armed, but 100 security guards around Harry and Meghan and his family, it's pretty good protection. And as you say, we're not talking about the Taliban here who've made a threat to them previously and they've come close to harming them before. Celebrities get threats all the time. The top tier ones, The Rock, Tom Cruise, etc., and they all pay for their own security.
Well, Harry's offered to pay for his own security, hasn't he? And he's actually offered to pay for the
wants
Metropolitan Police security. What he wants is the intelligence. He wants the knowledge, but the thing is, he does get that security on an ad hoc basis, doesn't he? He has to apply for it in advance. And I do see that there would be a public outcry about them being funded when they come back here because of the situation, so many people going without and taxpayer money being used to fund it. But then you do have to look at others who get it, including former Prime Ministers, including Liz Truss, for example. You know, why does Liz Truss deserve taxpayer-funded security when someone who was born as a prince and who is the son of the king is not entitled to it? And I think when you put it in that context, then it's a slightly different perspective on this.
I think people I would go back on that, Sarah, and say Liz Truss did a job for the country that she wanted to do to make the country better.
Did she?
For 50 days.
I mean, yeah.
She's entitled to it because that's what every other Prime Minister has gotten. Harry is not part of the royal family anymore.
He would argue that, every other Prime Minister has got it. But what about me? I was born this. I didn't make a choice.
But he made a choice. But he made a choice to leave it.
Former Prime Ministers can go and earn their money in the same way. I mean, Boris Johnson talked about this, all flying, in a holding pattern over the Atlantic, waiting to go and do their very lucrative speaking engagements in the United States, and they still get the security.
But it's going to go on, and we're only going to know if he's got the security, I think, if he turns up with Meghan.
Yeah.
If he turns up with Meghan and kids, you know that the Met Police or the Ravik have agreed to, have caved in. And if I speak to security officers or police officers and they say it's kind of an insult to ordinary Met Police officers and stuff like that to think, or for Harry to think that he wouldn't be protected by professional police officers. If there was actually a threat against him, you honestly think what the police are just going to say, oh, well, he's not covered by Ravik, we're not going to tell him. If there was a threat against him, the City of London Police, Met Police, when he goes to Birmingham for the Invictus Games, West Midlands Police, of course they'll be all over it, they're professionals.
This is so deeply entrenched in Harry, and we have to look at what happened to his mother in Paris as the source of this. And she was no longer entitled to security, and then she was under the care of Mohammed Al-Fayed's security team, and there were monumental security failings that night. Multiple factors involved in her death, but that is absolutely at the core of Harry's thinking about this, that she was left exposed and vulnerable.
Yeah. So that's the reason we should give them security, because of how he feels?
But I think we have to bear that in mind, and we have to understand where this comes from. And we have to have a degree of sympathy for him on that, don't we? Whether or not we agree that he should be paid, it should be paid for.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I would also then argue, if security is such an issue for him in this country, don't do the Invictus Games here. There's plenty of other places, territories he can do it. Don't do it in the UK.
Yeah, he could have gone to Washington, D.C., or he could have come to Birmingham. He deliberately chose to come to Birmingham, and it's thrown up all these issues of, meeting his dad, family coming over, and his security. It's almost like a deliberate prod, isn't it?
Exactly.
Before we move on from Boris, just one of the things that he wrote in this article this week, he said to Harry and Meghan, or in his open letter to Harry and Meghan, to come back, get stuck into those conspicuously thinned out royal ranks.
Yeah, that was the line that stood out for me.
Do we need them then? Are we so low on numbers that we need Harry and Meghan?
I think they would be, despite everything I've just said about Harry and Meghan, I think they would be great for the royal family. I think they'd be absolutely fantastic. If the public can get back around them, actually, forget the British public, going abroad, they're still loved. And they still have star power. And it would be much better for them. At the moment, they've got two separate strands. Harry's a philanthropist. That's all he's ever known. That's all he's ever done. Meghan is about capitalism. She's trying to make a living. she's a celebrity. That's it. But the two of them together with their separate strands, I don't think they align. If they were just working royals, they could do all the charity work they wanted and they wouldn't have to worry about trying to make a living on the side of it.
Well, they are making a living, as we discussed earlier, and surprising news in a show of unexpected news and surprises is that they have a new Netflix show.
They do.
This is about Polo.
Yes.
But it's not just about Polo as in what we saw a couple of years ago, or nobody saw a couple of years ago, because no one
Well,
watched
I watched it, but I mean, I'm not sure anyone else did, and it was pretty painful, a fly-on-the-wall series, which was trying to show us that the grit and determination and the sacrifices made by polo players in this sport of kings. And I'm not sure there was a huge degree of sympathy for any of these extraordinarily wealthy, entitled individuals, but there's going to be a drama about it. And I'm thinking kind of Jilly Cooper.
Yeah.
Across the pond.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, actually, this is a formula that I could get on board with.
Yeah, if they make it smutty enough, like Footballers' Wives-esque,
yes,
then it could be a good sleeper hit, I think.
Because this is their first one. This is literally the first scripted production that they have achieved. Yeah. And it comes just a couple of weeks after JJ that As Ever and Meghan split up.
Yeah.
Sorry, As Ever and Netflix split up.
Yeah. If they get the formula right for it, this could be fantastic for them. Maybe to launch pad to do more of these kind of shows. If it flops, then I think that is the final nail for Netflix. I said that last week. The final nail. They've got all the jams that are being given out to staff for free at headquarters. But if this flops, then they're done. And I don't think anyone else in Hollywood is going to want to touch them. Nobody wants to work with people who are putting out flops time and time and time again. They're lucky with Netflix that they've got such deep pockets, so Netflix can throw money away and not see it as a huge loss. But if this was a Paramount or HBO doing it, or Warner Brothers as the parent company, they wouldn't be able to have lasted this long with them.
So they have a first look deal with Netflix. Mm-hmm. Is this show their, last chance saloon?
I think so. And it's first look. From what I'm told from people at Netflix, they've put forward many ideas and none of them have been any good. Now, if they come to me and said, we're going to do a drama but sexy and it's about polo, I'd have said, but the polo documentary you did, nobody was interested in. So what?
I think they were trying to be too worthy with that documentary. And what we want from this is pure entertainment, glitz, glamour, and the kind of fictional element of it as well. And actually, I've often wondered when they executive produce these programmes for Netflix, and we have Archewell and Harry and Meghan on the credits, and I think, what does Harry bring to the table on this? I mean, where does he have any experience executive producing, shows? But at least on this one, he does come as someone who has played polo, and he does have knowledge of the game, and I guess he can be there, no, that's not right, no, that's not real.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't sit like that.
So he's their Julian Fellows to the Crown?
Yes.
So he'll end up being an advisor.
Abbey. He's the advisor, maybe, I don't know.
And what would Meghan bring into this documentary about two rival families and people falling out and lots of dastardly things going on behind the scenes, JJ?
We've often said you couldn't make it up, and this is like, a work of fiction and, a dastardly plot, so...
Yeah. Listen, and also don't forget, they've got a cast for this. If they're going to go for a bunch of unknowns or they're going to splurge more money and get a couple of big names in there. Maybe we'll see a Kim Kardashian turn up into it. She thinks she's an actress these days. Depending on who they can get attached to the project.
Are they still talking to the Kardashians
Yeah,
after the row over the photos?
But listen, Kim will do anything for money, much like Meghan.
Would you watch it, though? I mean, if it has their name attached to it, everyone's going to watch it. All the press are going to watch it. Everyone is going to get so much publicity.
Episode 1 will get watched by everyone. And if episode 1's terrible, then the numbers will drop by episode 2.
Do you think it'll ever appear? Because what was that? The film that they had a couple of years ago, it was like 3 years ago.
Meet Me at the Lake, the Carly Fortune book that they bought the rights to and is in development, but we still haven't seen that yet. They've had a number of projects. We had the Heart of Invictus. We had the one that was about kind of leaders, and I can't remember what that one was called.
Yeah,
but,
they were very hands-off on that one, to be honest.
Right, okay, and it didn't do the numbers. And then the Polo, which was pretty dire.
Yeah.
But as you say, this is a scripted piece. And if, Rivals, the Jilly Cooper production, was absolute massive hit over here, and people, eagerly awaiting.
And that was on Disney
return.
Plus,
That was
right?
on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
No, that was Netflix, wasn't it?
Rivals? What's the one on
It was Disney Plus.
It's
Disney Plus, yeah.
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 And that's not a huge streamer compared to Netflix.
No.
The size of audience that Netflix would have. If they can get it right, this will be global. It'll be like Squid Games, perhaps.
You know, it is sexy. It could be really sexy content.
But then do the royals want to be attached to something that is smutty? Is this going to further push them away from the royal family?
I think we're really...
Fair point.
But we've been paying attention to the news the last 34 years. But no, they have to find something. And is it the producers of Dynasty? Is it the US version of Dynasty?
Brilliant.
So it's that kind of flavour. A bit more fun, a little bit more, less kind of pious and stuck up and po-faced. Just have a bit of a laugh.
Yes, yeah. I think a bit less worthy, a bit more trash, a bit more escapism.
All right.
It might not be seen as being very royal, but...
We're talking to TV shows. Would you watch a TV show where a member of the royal family has... Do you know where I'm going with this, Sarah?
I do know where you're going with this.
Are you predicting where I'm going? Would you watch a TV show where Sarah Ferguson has cloned the late Queen's Corgis?
Don't know what
Absolutely would watch that. That sounds mad. So I'd definitely watch it. But I
if
think
you were Sarah Ferguson, would you even do that type of show?
I wouldn't even have listened to the offer. As soon as they said, Sarah, this is Frankie Hollywood, we want to do a TV show where we clone your Queen's Corgis. Well, I can't get the Corgis. Just get one Corgi, Sarah. We'll pay you $500,000. No, absolutely. Hang the phone up. That's bonkers. And yet she seemed to be listening to them in the early days of this TV idea. I don't agree with cloning full stop, but Fergie, it seems there's nothing she won't do for a paycheck, it seems. And as bizarre as it sounds, I think the TV show would have been, as a one-off, I think it would have worked.
Why is it distasteful? Because she's not a working royal, they're her corgis.
Well, hang on a minute. This was the ultimate show of trust from the late Queen. So these discussions took place in the months after the late Queen had died, according to the reports. And Sandy and Mick, the Queen's beloved corgis, who we saw there standing there on the day of her funeral, who were given to Andrew and Sarah, left to them by the late Queen in the ultimate show of trust. And then we have Sarah Ferguson apparently trying to monetise this most precious of gifts in order to put them out there for entertainment. Now, I mean, it's so bonkers, but frankly, nothing would surprise us anymore about this. So you look at it and you think, really? Is this the latest money-making scheme that she came up with?
She has many money-making schemes over the years. I mean, she's written children's books. She's done interviews. She's done a documentary where she went and stayed with some people in Hull.
Yep.
She's done all sorts of stuff to kind of make money. I'm not surprised, JJ, that she's actually come up with this idea, or not actually necessarily come up with this idea. I think her spokesman will say the idea was pitched to her.
Yeah.
And she turned it down. So.
Once she realised it was about cloning, which cloning for commercial gain is actually illegal.
Oh, is that right?
In this country, yes. Once she realised, apparently, that it was cloning and not just a sort of celebration of the Queen's Corgis, we're told that she did turn it down. But there were discussions about doing a programme with the Queen's Corgis.
And she's previously said that she believes that the late Queen talks to her via the Corgis.
Yes. Yeah, she claims she walks the dogs, and when they get to the favourite spot, she can feel the late Queen's presence, and the Corgis can feel it as well. I just think it's bonkers. I think she's bonkers. I think she'll say anything for a headline. You know, she actually, there's one point when she'd asked Vanessa Feltz if she could be a roving reporter for her. And Vanessa was like, okay, I guess so. And then Vanessa never heard from her again. She will do anything. The thing is with Sarah, she wants money, but she also wants fame, which I find bizarre. I don't understand. Everyone needs cash.
She was doing a lot of TV appearances, wasn't she?
Yeah.
She was on Loose Women, for example. Yes. You know, she was on This Morning. She was doing a lot of TV appearances, as well as being welcomed back into the royal fold. And she seemed to be combining the two, and then everything blew up.
Well, she's disappeared now.
Yeah.
It does show that if you don't want to, look at celebrities or famous people around the world. If you want to go missing and not be seen, you are able to. We've not seen her since I can't remember now. Last time we saw her, maybe
We saw
at the
her
christening?
at Athena's christening.
Athena's christening.
That's the last time, and we saw her briefly then, didn't we? And since then, she's gone to ground, and there's been a lot of speculation about where she's been, whether she at the wellness clinic in Switzerland, whether she'd gone to the Middle East, where she was. Clearly, she has people that she trusts and friends around her that can enable her to hide out, despite the very best efforts of photographers to try and catch a glimpse of her. We've seen Andrew out walking the dogs on the Sandringham estate in the last week, but nothing.
Why is she
Sarah
hiding?
Ferguson.
Is it because she fears she might be arrested?
I don't think she's done anything that could put her at risk at this point of being arrested. Yeah, there's sort of ethical and moral serious ethical and moral questions and judgment questions about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but this is different to the accusations being levelled at her former husband.
I think she's in hiding because, as you say, Sarah, that we've seen the emails and the letters that she sent to Epstein, grovelling to a man who you know was a paedophile after he served time for being a paedophile and telling him how you love him and
Marry me,
begging him to pay her rent. She looks disgusting. And the best way to avoid this is keep your head down and hope that it blows over. As long as Andrew keeps getting all the flack, she can be kept out of the headlines for a little bit.
Well, unfortunately, the rest of her family are also getting involved in the headlines. They say we saw Andrew for the first time, a very distant photograph of him walking said corgis that haven't been cloned.
He's not allowed to ride horses now, is he? So
No. Well, what they don't want to see is Andrew, when he was in Windsor, he was going around on his horse, driving up, waving at people, smiling. He's not meant to. He's in exile. This is a punishment.
It's a disgrace.
He's not meant to be looking like he's having a good time.
But then, I'm not here to defend Andrew, but what is he supposed to do in his spare time now? Because he has no job. His family don't want to speak to him. His friends don't want to hang out with him. So he's sat at home playing computer games online all day. That we know he likes to play his war games online, and he gets to walk the dogs. He has nothing to do. I wouldn't begrudge him being able to ride a horse around the estates. Like, okay, yeah, waving to people and acting like he's done nothing wrong, that is unsavoury. But he's got to carry on living his life. He's not been charged with anything. He's not been found guilty of anything. We know that he was friends with the paedophile, and for me, that is enough. But does that mean he can't do anything now for the rest of his life?
It's a really good point.
He is facing very, very serious allegations, and I think that the optics of him appearing to be living the high life on his high horse around the Windsor estate were excruciating for the royal family, and they do just want him to go away out of public sight. But it's a very sad, lonely life that he's now living at Marsh Farm. They've got the mobile home that's been put in the grounds for his security staff.
Yeah.
Talking of security, my goodness, does he need it now?
Well, I've been there. I've been up there. He's surrounded by huge fences. He's got electric fences, etc., etc. But he does have. He doesn't have the taxpayer-funded police security that Harry's after. He's got private, funded by the King. Protection officers. We mentioned about Andrew's family. I want to talk about the story about Beatrice and Edo. So there have been stories the last couple of weeks suggesting that not all is well in the Mapelli-Mozzi marriage. What do you know about that, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, while Andrew and Sarah Ferguson have been out of sight, attention's now turned to Beatrice and Eugenie and the focus on Beatrice's marriage. Now, why these stories have come about is because Edo Mapelli-Mozzi, Beatrice's husband, was photographed in Palm Springs, in Palm Beach.
Well, to be fair, so Edo was photographed in Florida, in Palm Beach, Florida, on a business trip. He did the pictures. He took pictures. He had pictures himself, and it was all over Instagram and all over Instagram stories. While at the height of all the allegations coming out against Andrew.
Palm Beach was a bit of an uncomfortable location for him to be, though, wasn't it, at that point, given its association with Jeffrey Epstein? And so the optics were difficult, and questions were asked about, well, why was he there when his wife was going through the most difficult time of her life? Look, he has a company and a business. He was always meant to be there. And so I think this is kind of being turned up into something bigger than potentially it is. But, I mean, there is now a lot of focus on Beatrice, Eugenie, how tainted they are by the sins of the father and the royal family distancing themselves. We're in a very different place now to where we were before Christmas, when it was very much, they're still part of the family, they're part of, the royals, they're part of the family itself, they're going to spend Christmas at Sandringham, they will always be welcome. And now it's a very different mood, isn't it?
It is. Jodie, do you think they should be tainted, or do you think that they are under? We're talking about both marriages, I suppose, aren't we? Jack and
Jack Brooksbank and Eugenie.
And Eugenie as well. So are they tainted by what's happened to Sarah and Andrew?
They are tainted, and they could have come out straight away and said the allegations against our father are horrendous and terrible. The emails our mother sent to Epstein, we do not condone this behaviour whatsoever, and we're going to pray to God that they find the right path, yada, yada, yada. But they've remained silent on it all. Eugenie and Beatrice would often be in tow. They were as entitled then as I believe Andrew and Fergie are now. They wanted everything for free. They swanned in, sat on a big table, would never pull out their wallets to pay for anything. That's what I envisioned, what I saw. Yeah, well, I'm 41. So yeah, but in 2019 years ago, that's what I saw of them then. I don't think... I think more is going to come out and it's going to involve them.
Really?
I do. I'm not saying they've done anything seedy, but I think in their behaviour and their entitlement, I think it's going to paint a very bad picture of those girls.
And it is taking its toll, as that Eugenie's already had to step down as patron of the Anti-Slavery International charity, which she'd been patron of for 7 years. She's gone very quiet in her work with Anti-Slavery Collective, the charity that she founded. They are very much being tainted by this, and because they are mentioned in the Epstein files. Now that's not an indication necessarily of wrongdoing, but the files suggest that Sarah Ferguson took them to go and meet Jeffrey Epstein 5 days after he had been released from prison, and they were adults, albeit 19 and 20. They were still
took
young.
Money as well. I think there was money that found the way to them as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that their silence kind of may mean that they fear that more things, they're going to be even more tainted and more things are coming down the line is an interesting point.
Yeah, and it has been suggested, hasn't it, that they've refused the royal family's offer to look at how ethical their finances actually are.
Oh, we're going to get on to finances now, actually.
Oh, are we?
Should we talk about the royal family's finances?
Yes, go on
lovely.
then.
Yeah.
There you go. I just naturally gave you that segue.
Let's cheer up after some of the depressing conversations we had and start talking about whether they're on the take, because the Crown Estate and the Public Accounts Committee, or the Government Public Accounts Committee, launched an investigation last October, November time after it all emerged that Andrew was living on a peppercorn rent. We then learned that Edward and Sophie have a peppercorn rent. This week, front page of The Sun on Saturday, as part of the Crown Estate deal, this rather cushy Crown Estate deal, the Edinburghs can rent out an office block, sublet an office block for £130,000 a year. That is a cushy deal they've got there, no?
It's completely cushy. All the funding of the royal family needs to be looked at. We need complete transparency for it. If that happens, there'll be a revolt in this country and the royal family will lose all favour with the majority of people in this country. I'm from a council estate. We don't get offered nice, cushy deals. It's a case of you pay your rent or you pay your mortgage. If you can't pay it, they take it away. Why are the royal family, who have just happened to be born into this life, being subsidised by us? And then Sophie and Edward are then making money by renting out stables on their farm, which money that should be coming back to the people.
Should come back to the taxpayer via the Crown Estate.
Instead, it's going in their pockets. This doesn't make any sense. But until we have complete transparency on all the finances for all of them, whether it's Edward to Prince Eugenie and Harry and Wills and Charles, when we finally get that, it won't be the end of the royal family, but people will be asking for them to have a lot less cash given to them.
And this is the kind of legacy, if you like, of the Andrew scandal, is that there is going to need to be far greater transparency when it comes to their finances. The deal that Andrew had at Royal Lodge and Edward and Sophie at Bagshot Park, they paid £5 million to extend their lease with the Crown Estate back in 2007. And after that, then it's a peppercorn rent. Now, these stables used to be the home of Ardent Productions, Prince Edward's TV production company. They've been rented out. They paused that in December, I believe. They're doing some renovation work before they're believed to go back on the market. The problem is, we know these properties cost an awful lot to maintain, but I think why there are questions here is not that they're renting these out, but the fact that this is Crown Estate property, but the money appears to be going to Edward and Sophie and not back to the taxpayer. And look, Edward and Sophie have been the kind of positive side of the royal family in recent years. Scandal-free. Sophie, with all of the work that she does around sexual violence in conflict, for example, you know, really lauded as the royal family's secret weapon. But they are not immune from the questions about the fairness and the legitimacy of these financial arrangements.
You mentioned there about Sophie. Like you, I've interviewed Sophie, and I thought she was wonderful. We were out in Bosnia, and I thought the work that she does goes so much under the radar that she often travels out with government officials into some of the most dangerous places in the world, into places like Africa, and it's all to do with sexual violence. And the Bosnia thing was very much about missing, you know, people that are missing, bodies that are missing for the Bosnian War, and what our government is doing to kind of help Bosnia. But what does Edward do? Genuinely, it's not a rhetorical question. It's like what he's been in this job for a long time, and I know what Sophie does, and I see, you know, the Bagshot Park, this wonderful, huge, massive house set in lots of acres. It's gorgeous. It's like, what has Edward kind of achieved? In anyone able to defend Edward? What has he achieved?
Well, I mean, he's taken on the Duke of Edinburgh Award from his late father, as well as the title now. But I agree with you. Sophie has, in a more modern way, Sophie has very much created a role, and we know exactly what her purpose is and where her areas of interest are. Edward's are perhaps a little bit more old school in the sense that they're scattergun, apart from the Duke of Edinburgh Award.
Which he picked up from his father anyway.
Which he did, but someone
had to. When he was 61.
And he is, you know... Look, this is like, you know, sort of... I mean, what am I saying when I say that they're pretty much scandal-free in recent years? Yes, of course, there have been, you know, Sophie got herself into trouble with the fake sheikh in the past, but they've managed to maintain a marriage, unlike Edward's siblings. They haven't brought disrepute upon the royal family. They are quieter and get on with the work than others. And perhaps we don't know what they're doing because we've been less interested.
We'll talk about achievements
as well. I mean, yeah.
You know, what have they achieved? Like when, as JJ was pointing out, that, you know, at some stage there is this government investigation into Crown Estate leases and where the royals get their money. If it all comes out and you say that people are going to be up in arms about it, people will start saying, well, we know what Andrew's done. Yeah, he's been punished. We know what William's done. He's going to be king. He's doing a great job with his family. We know that Anne is the hardest working royal. We know the king just will not stop. What's Edward's achievements? People will start asking questions about Edward.
Yeah, and royalists will say he stays out of trouble. That's his achievement. And for that reason, he should get whatever he wants. Nah, nonsense. Absolute nonsense. They shouldn't be living in this flipping mansion. I almost swore then. They shouldn't be living in that massive mansion. They shouldn't have all these benefits. But most importantly, they should not be making money off of the Crown Estate and pocketing it.
I'm not envious. It's not like kind of envious of rich people or envious of the royal family. I just think Edward needs to justify what he has achieved while he's been a working royal, because I really struggle. And I'd love our viewers, you know, probably know sometimes more than we do, some of our viewers. I'm sure they can tell us in the comments or get engaged and tell us what are Edward's achievements over the years, because I'm struggling to recall them.
I have no idea.
And he'll need to come up with some defence when, as JJ says, this committee starts looking at the money.
Heads will roll.
There we go. Let's quickly talk about Prince William. Either of you are religious. Do you go to church every Sunday or?
I do. I'm Catholic, yeah.
Excellent. What do you think about this interview that the Sunday Times covered, where Prince William, through his aide, says that he has a quiet faith? He will be head of the Church of England at some stage. Is that enough?
I think it's enough, and I think it's very honest. There's no such thing, in my opinion, as a good Catholic. Everyone's just trying. Obviously, he's Church of England, not Catholic, but all Christians. And he's being honest, and I think that will resonate, what he said, with many people in the country who believe in God but don't go to church. They might say prayers every so often, but yeah, on a Sunday morning, people wake up. A lot of people don't want to get out of bed early and go to mass. They want to get their lie in. So I think him being honest about it makes him seem even more relevant and just more relatable.
It's kind of like part of his kind of representative of like a modern father of three who's juggling a family and a job and is quietly religious.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there, of course, this has come to the fore because he is attending the installation of the new Archbishop of Canterbury, and so questions are always going to be asked. And we've always felt that his faith is pretty lukewarm. You know, he turns up at church on Christmas Day and Easter Sunday, but compared to his father and his late grandmother, it hasn't appeared that the church plays a big role in his life. And so these questions were inevitably going to come up and need to be asked, as he prepares for his next role as monarch and supreme governor of the Church of England. And I think I agree with you, JJ. This is honest. This is authentic. What else can he say? He can't suddenly say, yes, actually, I have a very deep faith. You just didn't know about it. Mm-hmm. I think it's something that he is reflecting on. We know that Catherine is moving into a very spiritual place since her cancer diagnosis, and actually her faith is in nature. And I think for William, there is a respect for the Church of England and the duty that comes with that. And I think this is reflective of who he is and the generation that he's in. We're actually seeing more Generation Zers, more sales of Bibles, more going to church as people are looking to find some kind of faith in very uncertain times. But I think William is kind of saying it how it is. And there are those who see it as an insult to the church. But what else could he say?
A couple of years ago, I think on the Eugene Levy and also in Cape Town when we were in South Africa, he talks about royalty with a small r.
Yes.
And maybe this is an example about
religion with a small r.
Religion with a small r, where but he's going to be the head of the Church of England. The amount of engagements I go to now with the King at a church or at a ceremony, it's a huge part of the monarch's job. So he needs to lay his cards out and tell us what he thinks.
Yeah, but any regular churchgoer would admit that the church is busiest at Easter and Christmas.
Right.
Those are the busiest times. Most people aren't there every single week. They're just there for the big occasions. And let's not forget, Church of England, it's only there because Henry VIII wanted to get his leg over again and again and again. We're not talking about the Catholic Church, we're talking about a religion that's separated from us because you had a king who is very much like some of the other royals. So I think the people who are offended by it, they're being too pious.
I mean, for anyone else, faith is something very private, isn't it? And it's a difficult question to answer. Always remember, was it Alistair Campbell talking about Tony Blair? He doesn't do God. They don't want to talk about this. And that is one of the criticisms that people are too quiet about their Church of England faith, while other faiths might celebrate more openly.
Yeah.
But I think for William, it is a path that he's on. And when it comes to his coronation, we've already been told, haven't we, that it's going to be very different, shorter.
Do you know what? If he took Catherine, George, Charlotte and Louis to church like kind of one Sunday a month, I reckon the numbers of families that would then take their families to church would skyrocket.
Well, they do go to church when they're in the Sandringham estate with other members of the royal family, not just on the kind of Easter and Christmas services, don't they? But would they then be accused of hypocrisy? Because they're just turning up to be seen to be turning up.
We'd never accuse anyone of hypocrisy on this show. Right, we've just got time for our quick-fire questions, everybody. So, first question. Sarah Ferguson has been rumoured to be cloning the late Queen's Corgis, but which royal, dead or alive, would you clone and why?
I would not clone any royal. It's against my personal ethics. I wouldn't clone anybody.
Not even for a huge sum of money from a US TV company?
How much are we talking, Matt? How much talking, yeah. OK, for 50 quid, I'd bring back Queen Elizabeth. The second. The second. Sorry, the second.
I mean, it feels a bit distasteful, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, Princess Diana, her life was cut tragically short.
Yeah.
I'd go for her.
OK. I'm going to go George VI, the World War II guy. He often gets forgotten. People don't really know what his achievements like because he's overshadowed by Churchill.
Yeah.
But I thought he was a proper decent fella.
proper decent
So you can
fella. There
actually
you
find
go.
out.
Proper.
Yeah, he wasn't meant to be king. He was catapulted into this role. He was there during World War II. Everyone forgets about him. It's all about Churchill. And he was, all the parties are outside Buckingham Palace. They weren't outside 10 Downing Street, remember? You know, we forget that he was...
Film, the King's Speech.
Yeah, we got the speech. That's good.
Yeah.
We got the film. But, it'd be good to come back and everyone can find out that he's a forgotten man of history. Question number 2. If Harry and Meghan did return to the UK, what should the opposite of Megxit be called?
So I thought it was unfair that it was called Megxit in the first place.
Why?
Because it was all about her. It's Megxit. It's not Harry and Megxit.
That doesn't work on a headline.
Of course not, but it's unfair that she's getting the blame for it. So I would go with Harry and reset. So Harry sets.
Okay. I was going to go Meghan.
Okay.
Meghan.
That's the winner. You're the journalist here.
Yeah, so you've got a job working on the Sun backbench doing headlines now. Okay, you have to reapply.
Yeah.
And finally, what funny excuse could Prince William, as future head of the church, give for not going to church on a Sunday?
Oh, easy. The same excuse I used to tell my mum as a kid. God spoke to me in my dream and said, don't have to go this week. You can stay in bed. Never worked, obviously. And I was an altar server, so I was always there.
You know, he's a modern prince working from home.
Or I'm the future king, I could do whatever I want.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks, guys. We've been through a lot. It's been a great time. And thanks, JJ. If any of our viewers want to, they like you and they want to see you again, where can they find you?
Daily Espresso. Just search that on YouTube. It'll come up with my face.
Awesome. All right, thanks, guys. We'll definitely have you back whenever you're
Super.
free. All right,
Thank you.
Right, that's all we have time for on this week's Royal Exclusive. Thanks to my guests JJ and Sarah, and thank you, as always, for watching. Remember to subscribe to us here on our Royal Exclusive YouTube channel for all the latest royal news, and we'll see you next week.